All right, and welcome everybody to our first, official live June 15th preview show. And Samantha and I are joined tonight by Amy Pauley. And Amy is head coach of the Orlando Valkyrie, but in a previous life, she did a little bit of college recruiting. And so, Coach, first of all, thanks for joining us again.
Of course, happy to be here. I love June 15th.
I was going to wonder. I wondered what's a coach's take? First of all, tell everybody your college experience before you headed off to the bright lights, big city of the professional volleyball league.
Yeah, before I got to the Valkyries, I spent 3 years at Southern California, so it was kind of great. It was my first school that I was at where I was really targeting the best kids in the class. And so it was a really fun experience. And before that, I spent time at two mid-majors. I was at Villanova University for 6 years, and I was at University of Alabama, Birmingham as the head coach for a few years. And so I've kind of bopped all around the country a little bit, and it's been fun to get to know different clubs and different regions. And volleyball is still different in every region. So it's been a pleasure of mine to be able to kind of dabble in every area.
And we're going to let you and Samantha do a lot of the talking, and I'll ask some of the questions throughout the night because you guys have some unique experiences. Samantha, you on the athletes end, going through the recruiting experience, and Amy, talk a little bit about USC. But what's this night like as a coach? Where I had somebody use the analogy, I don't know if it's good or not, but it's like you're in a zoo where for all these months, it's like the people you want to talk to are on the other side of this glass, and you can almost touch them, but it's not real. And then all of a sudden, you get to meet them and see what they're like and hear their voice and everything. So what are coaches feeling right now?
Probably a mix of emotions. I mean, I know I checked in with a couple of my good friends, just like, how are you feeling about tomorrow? And my husband is a head coach at American University, so he's going through the mid-major route. And so I think it's a mix of excitement because you're finally able to, like you said, break down the glass, have a conversation with somebody, see if they're even interested in you. But it also comes with so much hesitation because there's still so many unknowns. You really don't know if that athlete is interested in your school. You don't know if they've already made their mind up, or for a lot of the mid-majors, it's, I don't know if I'll even talk to this kid today or if I'll talk to her in 6 months from now because she'll still be available. And so I think it's very much this glass that's like ready to just overflow, and we're finally here. And I think everybody's kind of ready to get the monkey off of their back and get into it.
And a lot of what we'll go through tonight for everybody as they're joining in, we're going to have we'll have some PSAs, some prospective student athletes that'll be joining us. They're excited. A couple of them have messaged us throughout the day. They're nervous, obviously. And we're going to have a college coach who's been plenty busy himself. How he found 5 extra minutes for us is beyond me, but we're going to have an actual college coach come in and hear from him. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our rating system, if you will. We're going to talk about some of the positions. We're going to talk about past rankings. And then we're going to talk a lot about timelines. And I think what's been part of our mission statement of VB Adrenaline, we don't break down matches. We're not giving you game recaps because that's not what I know at all. We know recruiting, and we know how recruiting works on both sides of the spectrum. And there's a lot of gamesmanship that goes on, right? Good and bad, and we're trying to educate. And so a big part of ours is educating as we continue to go. And we made a big jump, but there's still a lot of information that athletes and their families can learn, and coaches are still trying to learn. And so, Samantha, with that, tell a little bit about your story. You're a Division II All-American, 1 year left, but what did you go through as an athlete on this night? And recruiting's completely different now than when you went through it.
Yes, no, I would agree. It's like you said, it's a little bit different now. So I went to the transfer portal my sophomore year. So I had a little bit of 2 different kind of looks at recruiting. So that was another thing that I've got to experience on the athlete side. But yeah, I think like you guys both said, it's a busy time. It's, there's a lot of nerves going into it. Like she kind of mentioned, there's a lot of schools that, aren't going to get some of these top athletes that they've been looking at. And then vice versa, these athletes may not, their dream school may not be able to, have a spot for them on their roster. So I think it's a lot of things that go into like kind of this process. So I think, for me, the first time I went through it, I was around 15. So a little bit younger, about a year younger than these girls are. But so, that's a lot of, you're calling a lot of coaches. You're having a lot of phone calls. You're trying to get to know them and then trying to get official visits scheduled and kind of try to narrow down what's most important to you. And there's a lot of factors, once again, that go into this big decision. So I'm excited for these girls. I'm excited to talk a little bit today and just, get to, like you said, educate them on the process and then talk a little bit more about what a phenomenal class this is this year.
Well, and I think for everybody listening and tuning in, we'll spend a little time on some of the names, but that's not really what this show is going to be about because, those might be 1 or 2%, but they're 98%. They're going to have a completely different journey. And I, that's our process more, right? Like that's our meat and potatoes. We're not the fancy. I sure as heck would never have gotten a call from Nebraska back in my playing days. I know that, and would sit and sweat it out. And I was lucky enough to have the Vanderbilt staff invite me to their camp over the past couple of days just to see what one's like. And wow, first of all, what those athletes go through going to camp after camp and their parents driving them around the Southeast or the Midwest, or the ones that are flying from Texas to California to Florida to, Minnesota. And that's a whole nother story, but it's almost like you're on a dress rehearsal every single time, right? And they don't know if their phone's ringing tomorrow, if they're getting a text tomorrow, if it's going to be a week from now, right? And like, it's important to understand, as I got to talk to a lot of the Kentucky alumni that won a national title, and Coach Anders Nelson helped recruit a lot of those kids when they're in Kentucky. And they were telling me, they were kind of laughing. They're like, hey, there's an Olympian right now who also is a national champion. She's going to be an Olympian. She won a national title, and her 3 final schools, none of them started with Texas anything, right? Like they were what you would call some pretty small schools. So don't think everybody's story is big logo this and big logo that, right? Like great volleyball players have amazing journeys. And Amy, talk about being in the pro league, and you heard all kinds of different stories, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, no one does sports like the US. And so it's really interesting how we go through our process from club to university to now pro in the States. And typically it would be university to pro overseas. But if you talk to any of the international athletes, they kind of are put in their pro team when they're teenagers and they start playing with their club. And so it's much different. And I think that we have such a unique and special thing here that allows our student athletes to get a great education. And I think a lot of times that is what gets missed sometimes on this big date of June 15th and recruiting. You've already kind of alluded to it, but there's so many different opportunities and types of schools and options that are out there. And we've kind of put this emphasis on June 15th as this like big day to start recruiting. These athletes are going to keep doing recruiting a year from now, going into their senior year. And so that's kind of if there was ever a message that I had for people going into June 15th is, don't make or break your recruiting process on what happens tomorrow. There's so much more to come and so much more in store for you because we have so many options in the US to go play college volleyball. And so Samantha's like the perfect testament to that, probably.
Yeah, I think one thing that stuck out to me is like you said, there's so many opportunities. And I think also even the top athletes, every athlete's different. And what is important to them is, like you said, there's an Olympian who went to Cincinnati, and just there's a lot of different factors that are really important to these athletes, and finding a home, playing close to family. I think, like you said, there's so much emphasis on kind of like the names and everything like that. And I think, it's really, there's so many opportunities. And I think it's, just taking it, enjoying the process and enjoying, I think, just being able to really compete at like a high level wherever it is across the United States.
Yeah, and we're gonna beat that to death because it's important. And tonight, so again, if you're gonna commit in by 12:15 a.m., I'm gonna be asleep. And God bless you. Everybody's got a process, but that's not 99.5% of the people's process. And we want to explain that because the media and we're guilty of it, right? But we want to stress that tonight because we want to cover everybody. Again, going to college alone is 1%. You're a 1%er. Getting paid to go to college or getting college paid for is amazing, right? And it sets you up for life. But to talk about that, I want to just point out, you talked about a year from now, people doing recruiting, and Livia Ward just committed to Washington State yesterday out of Oklahoma, #1 ranked setter out of Oklahoma. And first of all, an amazing young lady, has liked all of her stuff for a year, compliments athletes online all year long, right? I've waited all year and I've been like, when's she committing? Where's she going? Did the camp thing, right? Played club. And gave so many people compliments, but waited a year, literally 365 days, committed verbal yesterday. She's going to Division I, scholarship player, and a very, very, very good player took a full year, right? That was her process, and so everybody's are different. So we're going to talk about that over and over. And so with that, let's go into some of the rankings and some of the things. One thing we want to touch on before we get into, we're going to talk about our one thing we've gotten some questions on, our prospect power value. And this is just our way of kind of sorting athletes. We're not big on rankings. And the reason is, I'm not doing rankings. I'm not qualified to do rankings. Samantha's not qualified to do rankings. Zach, who's our behind the scenes guy, is not qualified to do rankings. What we do is we talk to people a lot smarter than we are, people like Amy, right, that know the recruiting game, people behind the scenes that are in the game and care and make paychecks doing this, and they give us ideas where we should be looking. And so when we do a PPV, right, they're really off of a 300 point scale, right? And so 300 to 290, and I apologize, our edit got deleted, 300 to 290. 300 would, if you have to justify everything with rankings, a 300 to 295 would in essence be maybe your #1 through #5 in your class. And to think of that, that's maybe like a player of the year candidate, right? Very, very few. Or back in the old days with football, it was like a 5-star, right? There shouldn't be 75 5-star athletes in a class. That's very, very rare. And those athletes are expected to do very, very rare things. So when you look down the line, that's what our PPV means. And that's basically how we help classify, and this changes all the time with our rankings as we talk and as we see, and as athletes like the class of 2026, we may see them at nationals, and now that coaches can actually evaluate and talk about athletes, they may move a whole lot between now and the time they actually head off to school. All right, so we're not going to ever do a top 200, even though obviously those get a lot of clicks. Coaches put, Amy, can you back me up on this? Did you guys ever offer a scholarship because of where somebody was ranked on blankblank.com's top 150?
No. No, I did not. And one thing I actually appreciate about this type of ranking is I also feel that rankings in the past have ranked players based on where they committed to school. And
Yes.
I think that's a little unfair sometimes. Like there are athletes that choose to go to a university for so many different reasons, and that doesn't determine how good they are at volleyball. There could easily be a top 10 player. I'm just going to throw out an example. Somebody's going to say I'm like alluding to something, but I'm not. Like at Creighton can pull a top 25 athlete, right? And sometimes those athletes just automatically get bunched down into maybe the lower 50s or something. And it's like, oh, because they're going to Creighton. But it's not. Those athletes really are the cream of the crop too, and deserve to be graded for what their value is, not where they're going to school.
Yeah, and we'll talk about, I tweeted the other night, just because my Twitter feed blew up with what everybody else considered to be, the gospel, I guess, what the rankings were. And I happened to see a very, very, very good program select camp. And there was a certain position. There was a girl there that wasn't even in the top 150. And I think the coaches of this program really do know what they're doing when they invite. So either they forgot how to evaluate kids, or the other poll might have been off a little bit, right? And that's just why we don't evaluate everything we do. We check with somebody else. And the rankings, we probably lose viewers. We probably lose memberships and subscriptions because of that. I know they get the most clicks, but I'm going to tell you right now, right? And send you all know our email and our social medias. You can send the nastygrams to me. Coaches do not look at those whatsoever when they offer scholarships. They do not matter. They never look at those when they go to a club tournament whatsoever. All right. So that's just how we do it. And that's based off people much smarter than us, giving us an age range, giving us an ability range for that. There's a reason certain schools look at and recruit certain players. And so with that, we'll just show you Henley. And so Henley with bonus points would be our top player in this class and has been for a while. And so she would be a perfect 300 player, if you will, in our PPV for this class. So with that, we're already behind, which is awesome. But with that, let's welcome in Zach. If you can you bring in our first guest? And with our first guest, let's give her center stage here. And Gigi, and let's see. I think Gigi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, there you go. Welcome. And Gigi, first of all, tell everybody where you're from.
My name is Gigi. I'm from Miami, Florida.
All right. Can you pronounce for me correctly your last name?
Artiles.
I wouldn't have gotten that. Thank you, Gigi. All right. So my question, then I'll give it to the pros. My thing is just, how do you feel right now?
Like everyone, I think a little nervous, but I'm mostly excited to talk to the coaches that I haven't been able to talk to yet, but really excited, obviously a little nervous too.
Yeah. Ladies, go ahead. Questions for Gigi.
Go ahead, Sam. Start us off.
Yeah, I can start us off. Yes. So Gigi, so like you said, a very important time. So have you attended some college camps in the past, or maybe some this summer? And then how important is really building that relationships during those college camps? And then, as you said, as your phone's about to be ringing off the charts, how is those prior connections? And then a little bit, down the road, like building that connection.
Yeah, well, I think building the connection at the camps is a big thing, because obviously you can't talk to coaches like outside of camps like at this time. So recently I had a tribe thing at like my club, and we had a bunch of college coaches come into the club. And so obviously it's easier then, because you get to talk to and get to know multiple coaches there. So I think building the relationships there is very important, because like June 15th and like the time after that, like that's when you have to like kind of build the relationship really and talk about like your recruiting process. Mm-hmm. But for before that, I think the camps are really important for that.
Mm-hmm. Gigi, I have so many questions. Do you everybody organizes their June 15th different. So do you already kind of have a plan in your mind of, and it's okay, I think if this happens, I'm going to reach out to this coach at this time, or are you just going to kind of wing it and see what phone calls you get starting at possibly midnight? Or are you a planner?
I'm definitely more of a planner, yeah. So I'm planning on taking my top 5 schools tomorrow. So I think that is my plan, and I'm gonna make times for everything because I'm not one to like that's gonna just wing it and stuff. So I think for sure the times is gonna be my like route to this.
Do you have a list of questions prepared?
Yes, I do.
Nice. What's
Gigi.
the hardest question you're going to ask, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I know one of the questions I'm gonna ask is like what type of player is like fits and like thrives in their program, because I think asking that question, because I was able to do I've been able to like prepare really well for June 15th through Tribe, because they do a really good job of preparing us, and through Susan Forbes, she had this program where I did mock calls, so I decided like I could see how the calls kind of went and like how it's probably gonna go. So yeah, for sure that helped a lot, and that helped me like decide which questions like really matter to me and really will help me get to know the school and the program and the coach.
That's awesome. I love that you have somebody there to help you like think of questions and plan and prepare. It's very valuable to have that.
Yeah, for sure.
Gigi, I want to ask, I might ask everybody this, my favorite question to ask prospects. Everybody seems to tell me culture is going to be really important in my decision.
Yeah.
And I say every coach is going to tell you they have great culture. That's like recruiting 101.
Mm-hmm.
How are you really going to find out about a program's culture, good or bad?
I think that obviously asking the questions, certain, because a lot of coaches, I've learned through this process, like all the questions they get is like, what does a day in life of the athlete look like? Or like, what is your culture like? So I think those questions are really common, but I think if you ask them the right way, I think you can get a more clear answer. So I think I'm just going to be more very specific in the way I ask about culture, instead of just like an open-ended question, like, oh, how's your culture? Like I'm going to ask specifically like, what does your team do on Thanksgiving? Like something like that to learn more about them.
I had so I'm going through free agency in the pro league right now. And so we're kind of, it's funny, people are like, oh, how are you not having a June 15th? I said, I'm literally doing the same thing, but with adults right now. But I had a player ask me the other day a question that I've never been asked before. And because I'm big on culture, I've had really great mentors with that too. But her question was, what are your non-negotiables in the gym? And I've never had anybody, it like threw me for a loop, because I was like, well, I don't know. Like I had to think about it, and I knew what they were after thinking about it. But I think that's a really telling answer that a coach can give you for what do they allow. Like maybe they are okay with a little bit of attitude in the gym, right? Or maybe they aren't great with letting effort go unpunished, something along those lines. So I would encourage everybody to add that question to their question book, because I thought it was a really good way to like have a segue too about other things that could be important in your gym.
Yeah. One of my questions kind of like that is like, what kind of vibe do you guys like create in practice? Is it like really intense, like serious, or are you on like the more like kind of funny, like laid back side? I think that's one of the like important things too.
Awesome. Sam, you got one more for Gigi?
Yeah. So the most important, are you going to be waiting till 12 a.m. for these calls? Are you going to stay up?
No, I'm not actually. Shut off my phone, get a good night's rest, and wake up early tomorrow and go from there.
Gigi, I'll leave you with this one. What do you think? Do you feel like decision soon? You're going to take your time, visits? Where do you feel like you might be?
I think that obviously there's no like set date for me to make my decision. I think that when I feel that it's right, obviously I'm going to be with my family, talking with them, praying about it. But I think when I feel that it's right and when I feel that the school's 100% perfect for me, I think that's when I'll make my decision. But I'm also going to be very respectful to everyone's time and my time too. So I think that's a big part too.
Look, sorry, one more. I lied. What did you think? Because one thing I hear from college coaches, a lot of people tell them, a lot of athletes say, hey, I want to keep absolutely every opportunity open. Okay. And a lot of coaches, college coaches say, hey, if a kid tells me, we're in their top 25, that's not always a great thing. Did you have somewhat of a narrowed down list? You talked about your top 5, but do you have a big list, a small list? Is it 5? Is it bigger? Where do you kind of have something narrowed down?
Yes, I for sure narrowed down my options because I'm not gonna because if I have way too many options in my head that I'm not for sure about, then it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take longer. These college coaches, if I don't go to their program, then they still have to find other people, I think just really thinking about what I really, really want, what's really important to me, has helped me really narrow down my list for sure. So yeah.
That's a great answer. I think, Gigi. So, hey, Play with Tribe. Obviously, you've had some great prospects come through your program that you probably got to watch. I've watched you this year. One glowing endorsement for you. I hadn't got to see you last year, and we were at Triple Crown. And Charlotte was waiting to play, heard her mother, and I walked by, and they said hi, and they're like, you better sit down. You have to watch Gigi. Well, if they're calling over, pulling in fans for you, that's a pretty good endorsement for you.
Yeah, I love Charlotte and her mom. They're great.
And they didn't lie. It was worth me sitting down and watching it. It was worth it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Gigi, best of luck on your process. Let us know. We'll celebrate with you for sure whenever that is, okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Yes.
Bye. Good luck.
Bye.
I love Gigi Artigas, by the way, from Tribe, and I loved her answer there at the end. And we'll talk about this over. First of all, Susan Forbes does a great job with the education of her clients, with the preparation. So I'm not surprised at all by that. But that was one thing I learned talking with a lot of coaches. The answer of I'm keeping all my options open. And Amy, you probably heard that a lot as a coach. That's not always a good thing that coaches always like to hear.
Yeah, I think so. I have a little bit of a difference of opinion than Gigi on that, because I also think that these athletes should be open to maybe that one-off that you take a phone call and you go, wow, I really liked that coach. I really want to explore a little bit more. And so I think it's great that she narrowed down her list. She's a phenomenal player. I think that her phone is going to blow up. And so I think for somebody of her caliber, it makes a lot of sense. But I think for the majority of athletes, they have to take some time and take a lot of the calls that are coming their way, because they don't necessarily know what's going to stick out to them. As a coach, yeah, when you're like, hey, I have a list of 25, I usually would say, we'll give it a couple phone calls. And if you haven't narrowed it down after that, then it's probably like, I would just assume that you're stringing me along and then probably move on after that.
No, I would, to touch on that, I think, that's a big thing. I think when you have that first original phone call, it's really telling. I think the connection that you have with the coaches, and like you said, some of these really big name schools that are on some of these girls' lists, they could pick up the phone tomorrow and you just really not feel that connection, or that the culture, that's really important to a lot of these athletes. So I think really, like you said, really being open and just kind of embracing all the process. Like you said, there's so many underrated schools and upcoming programs that, that really deserve a second look.
Well, I hear that as well. But talking with some programs that have reached out, recruiting coordinators or however it exactly goes, to say like, hey, do we have a shot? And, whatever is said back, you're in their top 30, right? And programs be like, hey, we're not beating out 30 other schools. Let's move on to somewhere where we have a more realistic chance to focus our time, right? And so maybe that's that gamesmanship a little bit of recruiting, where by wanting to hear absolutely every call, you may actually lose out on some calls because schools move on because they don't think they have a realistic chance.
I think, like she touched on it, sorry, not to cut you off,
No.
a little bit, like you said, was for 98% of the population, that's really not the case, where they're going to have these programs that are in their top 5, kind of calling. So I think for a select few, that is really important to really, to narrow those down and to be like, hey, just, I don't think it's going to work out in the long run. But I think I would just advise, I think the majority of people that are in college recruiting, I think to really explore their options.
I also think I'm a really stubborn recruiter. And so if you tell me, hey, yeah, I have 30 options, so I'm going to put myself more in like the mid-major shoe where I know that I'm overshooting trying to get this athlete interested. I'm not going to give up right away. I'm going to say, okay, I'm in your top 30. How can I bug you enough to get in your top 15, And so it's so different against every program and every situation and athlete. And so I think the hard part is realizing what situation you are in and then pivoting to what's in front of you.
Yeah. And one thing, I don't know to get on my soapbox now about this or not, but we do have over 500 viewers, which is an all-time record for us. So maybe this is recruiting 101. Okay. Because I've got this so much and Sam already knows what I'm going to say, but Amy just touched on this. There are stubborn recruiters. The recruiter's job is to go after the best talent there is. If they want you, they will go after you, regardless if I do an interview with you or not. And you happen to say you went to a camp at their rival's school. That's not going to turn them off from recruiting you. Amy, for the 18th coach in a row, would you please say?
Oh yeah, no. If you want them, go get them. And
that's kind of your job.
Yeah, that's our job, is to go recruit better athletes than we have in our gym right now and to upgrade our program. So I think a good recruiter is a stubborn recruiter.
Yeah. So if back last year, a year ago, if somebody happened to be wearing a Bruin sweatshirt around in a picture, you may give them a hard time.
Oh, yeah.
But if you wanted them, you're going to call them. You're not going to cross them off your list, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. So it's okay to say I had fun at a Bruin volleyball game one time. It's okay, right? That's all right. So with that, while we're waiting for our next coach to come on, let's go through and let's look at some of our ranking, just top 10. Let's talk about some of the athletes in this class. And let's start with the outside hitter position, right? The big names. We talked about Henley Anderson a lot. I want to talk about Laura Eichert out of the Northwest, and a name I got brought on to late in the class after a pretty prestigious coach made a quick trip up there. And not sure if y'all have seen any film on Laura, but she's a real deal. We want to talk about a power arm, ever coming in at number 5, but she's a difference maker.
I had Laura at USC camp when she was in 8th grade. I went after her as an 8th grader because she was just an all-around, I mean, she's a beach player and she is an all-around talent. She can do everything. So haven't watched her in a year. I don't know if she's grown at all, but she's got a whip of an arm and can pass the ball. So I am not surprised to see her on your list. That's awesome.
One thing Laura will be interesting to see. She had hinted about location maybe and that, and also I know academics are very important for her. But somebody probably because of geography doesn't get talked about on a national stage. But trust me, all the big dogs have been able to see Laura, and her phone will light up as well. And she also said she's going to get a good night's sleep, tonight. And then, Sam, we watched Gabby DeVita early and fell in love with her way back in February.
Yeah, one of those, really impact players for this 16 legacy team. And she just really does it all. I think one thing that really stands out about this class to me is really the six rotation outside hitters that we have is phenomenal athletes that are really jumping out of the gym. And then, you get to kind of pair it with this really ball control that we're seeing at a really high level. And I think Gabby DeVita is a perfect example of that. Somebody who just brings a lot of fire and, a lot of just, leadership to the court. So I think a phenomenal athlete all around.
All right, so with that, let's move on to the middle blockers. And this is something, this is a group, me and all my vast volleyball knowledge, I jumped on this position group early, talking about the depth, and more depth kind of exposed itself. And I talked about Hayden Connor. We talked about Brooke Harwood from Arizona Storm, but I should say we have liked Hayden Connor just as much. They have that Twin Towers out there in Phoenix and why they're one of the top 16s groups anyways. But this Keone Williams we have as the number one. But Hayden Connor is somebody, maybe it's because of her teammate, maybe it's just because of the position group itself. But I love her game, and she's going to make a program better.
Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree more. I think, like you said, Brooke Harwood, we know her, and Hayden Connor, just, I think really those two middles that really just complement each other so well. And I think, really physical middle blockers that really are going to, make their hitters better, make the other people in their gym better. And just, they bring a lot of energy. And I think they're just really, dependable players in the middle position.
Yeah, and one, we're going to talk to Kayla at the end of our show, but Amira Bailey is another one, plays for a little bit of a smaller club, and she's a name maybe hasn't been mentioned on a national stage like some of the Texas middles, but I think there's going to be some chatter coming up on her going forward. Setters, maybe not as much depth as maybe a year ago, and they're kind of sandwiched in with a really, really talented 27 class, but the top end, and I don't know, the last month, I've just really grown to like Mallory Matheny. And I don't know, Amy, when you guys looked, do you want a real talker at setter? Do you want more a cerebral setter? What do you want put you on the spot?
I think that's the hardest position to recruit because at the end of the day, location is the most important. They have to be able to consistently set the same ball over and over again. And that's really hard to determine as a 16-year-old because you don't know your body yet. Your hands, your wrists aren't like super strong yet. And so I think that this is one of the positions that 17s and 18s, people really start to find their way. And you see kind of some movement in the charts a little bit. But no, I think you want somebody who not necessarily is overly talking, but you can tell that the team respects them, is listening to them, all eyes on them in team huddles. And that is something of an intangible that I look for.
Yeah, I have a question for Amy really quick, just to kind of piggy off of that. So for you as a recruiter, and when you're, really watching high level volleyball, how does it change when you're recruiting a setter that, maybe in a 6-2 for club, but then, how does the thought process go into that when you may be expecting them to run a 5-1 when they get there, but they've been sitting a 6-2, or how does that factor kind of play into it?
I'll be honest. I did not love recruiting setters that were running 6-2s. I thought it was really tough. You want to be able to see if they can block. You want to see how they're running slides. And so I know that that's not always the case, especially in club right now, if I get on my soapbox about how many athletes are on rosters. But I think you have to be able to see them at least play it a couple times. Like if you're really interested in that setter, get to their court a bunch so that you can watch their whole game, not just that 3 rotations of side out.
Well, and I think when you go up and down this list and some of the other ones, you've done that with some of these names. Is I guess we got to wait another couple hours to say what schools we've seen, but you've seen with some of these names from week to week, schools popping in, and then schools maybe, as we get down to 6, 7, and maybe coming 2 weeks in a row or 3 weeks in a row to get a better evaluation. I think Genevieve Harris really separated herself at number one. And I think, Sam, we kind of saw that in December at NTDP. I walked in saying, who's going to separate themselves as the number one, setter and Isabel Hoppy. Those were the two that just went to U19 training. I don't know if we can get any insider info out of our next guest, but or not. But those two, and then Mallory. The three of those have been making, I guess Isabel and Mallory have been making the rounds on the setter circuit. But so interesting to see. But I personally, Mallory, to me, she communicates like I would want a bro to communicate. She plays with that Midwest, I guess, intensity and passion. But I don't know if that's always great or not, but it's one I wanted to speak out on. And our next guest is here. And so we're going to let him come in and we'll finish up the other position groups in a second. And if any of us ever complain about being busy, we need to just smack ourselves around a little bit, because our next guest, this guy is busy. Coach Jamie Morrison, Texas A&M, Team USA, U19, you name it, this guy does it. Coach, thank you for your time stopping in.
I'm not sure if I was on the air when you said that, but I started laughing hysterically. It's been a crazy few weeks for me.
At what? When you said you were busy, or when we said you were a good recruiter?
Busy. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear the first part. Busy.
Yeah, you are. Well, thank you. And where do we start? I mean, can you you want to give us just a quick recap of your last few days with camp and the U19?
Yeah, I took my team to Europe. I came down.
Yeah.
Yeah, went to Europe, came home, had 12 hours, flew out to California, and tried to cram about a month's of knowledge into about 4.5 days. And man, that group just, I think every year I say this, and I've written USA Volleyball just about the power of NTDP and what's going on with that, and the 3 times that we get to meet a year, and just how I feel like the level of volleyball in the United States is raising because of it. It's a really, really cool thing. So I'm happy to be a piece of that. And then obviously U19 is an honor. It's special. And just that group itself, 4.5 days to try to get ready to go compete against the world. And I remember our last World Championships we won, and people were asking, well, how many days did you have to train for this? And I said like 7 or 8. And I think there was a curse word in there, but it was like, no way. And just the power of the people that we've had come in, their ability to open their minds and learn has been pretty amazing. So European trip, came back, 12 hours, 4.5 days of training, had that group, and then came back and straight into camp, literally drove straight there. And then got done with that today. And then tomorrow I hear it's going to be busy for some people. So excited to get on the phone and talk to some people and really learn about who they are.
As much as I want to ask you about Team USA stuff, I don't know if that ever can, but that's going to have to take a back burner. We got to talk recruiting, and I got a million questions for you. But I know we talked earlier, and you said you wanted us to make sure we addressed the process we already have, and we're going to continue. But talk about that and just how important that is. We talked about just a first-class individual and a very, very good volleyball player who just verbaled yesterday, 365 days after her process. So touch on that.
Yeah, I just think like everyone's talking about the decision, and like tomorrow is the start of something long-term. Yeah. And I just think, I think it's really awesome the way that the recruiting rules have changed, that we've delayed this whole thing. Just because I don't think a 13 or 14-year-old is ready for like what's coming, but I think it's also the byproduct of that is that it's accelerated everything. Of like people are expecting, I don't know, that this decision has to be made tomorrow, and it doesn't. And I think when you were 13 or 14 years old, you were taking a year to do it. Now you're taking a week to do it. Mm-hmm. And my biggest push that I'm going to try to make over the next little bit is that the official visit rule changes. And Amen. I don't know why that has to happen on August 1st. Like that should start maybe happening on July 1st. And I understand pushing a little bit of like, let's have a conversation and let's sit down and talk 2 or 3 times and let's bring you out to our school after that. But I think if we were to push that back, you'd have more athletes taking control of the situation and saying, hey, I'm not going to choose right now. Like I'm going to wait for 2 weeks. And I think the month and a half is a little bit long for some people to say that. And all of a sudden, like 2 people make a decision. And then all of a sudden we're feeling pressure as coaches and athletes are feeling pressure as athletes. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, this thing snowballs into people are having a conversation, but like this should be a process. This should be athletes and coaches figuring out what fits best for our culture as coaches, and then for athletes, what fits best for them. And I just think, I think people in the past have said like choose a school for a school. And I don't know if that's the case. Like, I think it should be like choose a coaching staff for a coaching staff. But the way things are changing in college athletics, like people are going to transfer. But I think that whole getting to know the people that you're going to be with is really, really important. So that was my call to you, was just like, let's call this a process. Like let's make it hey, we're going to get on the phone and I don't know, have a conversation for 2 or 3 days before we decide to spend 4 years together. So yeah, I'm passionate about it. So that's why I made the phone call.
And I'm passionate about it. And first of all, people, that is the goal that you get here that you're not going to find on other June 15th productions. Okay. So that's why you tune in here. It's educational. It's informative. Right. And so thank you. No. And that's what people need to understand. And I've talked to coaches this week that are exactly that. They're like, I feel like it's going to be rushed. Right. And their, program, I know their program would be better off if they got kids on campus, right? And my thought is, like with everything, the big dogs benefit. The sooner kids decide, that benefits the big dogs, right? The longer you go and you get to know a staff and build relationships, that just opens the door of thought, right? And they're like that for a reason. I get it, but let somebody build a relationship. And that's why my whole question every single time is, how do you really build a relationship in 15 minutes or 6 hours, right? And whether you've gone to camp every year since you're a sixth grader or not, how do you build a real relationship if you've never talked to those people ever? And maybe you can explain that to me, but I don't know. And so I think getting them on campus is great. And I would love to see kids do it. I guess we just called it Decision 26, meaning the entire class, not you got to decide on the 15th, because that's actually exactly what I'm against. So,
yeah, I don't know if there's a full way to completely get to know the athletes they're bringing into your program. Like when I have conversations with our athletes, like I usually have, 3 phone calls with myself, 1 phone call with one of my assistants, and I usually have 1 phone call with a parent. And even with our transfers that have come in, like I've had conversations with them, and I've hit a home run, I think, with the human beings we brought in. But I feel like once they're here for 2 weeks, I'm like, I didn't really fully get to know you. Like, I'm happy that you're here. But I didn't fully know the human being that you were. And again, I've been impressed by everyone that's come in to be a part of this program. But 30 minutes isn't enough. Like, I don't know if 4 hours is enough. I don't know if you're going to get more than that. Like, but I think the more you get, the more you truly get to know the people that you're going to be around. You get to know if there's a connection there. You get to know truly what people stand for. And you can ask some questions. And so, yeah, I don't know if there's a way to make it 100% perfect. It's going to be accelerated now. There's no way it's not going to. Just with the way that all of this changed, it's not going to be a year-long process. But I don't think it needs to be a day-long process. It probably needs to be at least a 2-week or a month-long process for most. And maybe, again, if we can get to stretch 6 weeks to an official visit, that's amazing. But I know there's a lot of kids that aren't doing that. But again, this is where I think the rules need to change a little bit into the fact that we can make it a 4-week long process. Like, if that's what it needs to be, let's make sure we can get a face-to-face time and sit down and have a meal and get to, see campus. Like, that seems like something that should be an automatic, and it's not necessarily there yet. So yeah, I'm passionate about the whole thing. These young women are making lifelong choices of where they're going to go to school. Where they're going to spend time, who they're going to spend time with, who's going to mentor them, the people that they're going to be around, and make lifelong friendships. And I think that should be given a little bit more than a day.
Amy, former coach, former recruiter, can you hit coach with a hard-hitting question?
Oh,
Well, actually,
I didn't know. I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, I actually was going to ask about the June 15th date in general. Like, I'm not a big proponent for rules. I think when we change the rules, there's always some good and bad that comes from it. One of the issues that I've taken with June 15th is that it falls a week before nationals. And so you're on the phone with these players while they're at AAUs, while they're at nationals, telling them to get on a Zoom, telling them when are they going to visit. And then exactly to your point, they can't actually visit. So this month and a half is just really silly to me. And so I always wondered, should we just make everything August 1? You can talk to them August 1. You can visit them August 1. Like, let them enjoy their summer, go to their camps, win nationals, be a kid, and get into August 1, and everything is opened up that way.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw a hot take your direction. Can't we just move nationals to earlier?
Yes.
Please. It's way too much volleyball.
I'm going to throw some surveys out there. Again, I don't know when I want to know, and I'm big on acquiring data before I have an opinion. So I want to know when high schools across the country end. Like, I don't think we can do nationals. Like, I don't know if high school is going on somewhere in the country. I think it's hard to do it. But as soon as that's over, I think we can. And I don't know if it's a convention center issue. I don't know if it's anything like. But I'm a big proponent of, like, we need our athletes to get a break at some point here too. So, like, let's push this a little bit earlier. So nationals is done earlier, and then I agree. Let's kick this afterwards, so you're not distracted when you're going to the most important competition of your year. But I'm also a proponent of, like, I'm actually pretty happy. Like, I've had people be like, "Oh, you have to spend your Saturday on June 15th," and I'm like, I'm really happy to set Saturday for our athletes if they're in school or something, like that, they get some time off. So. So I think let's make it best for the athletes. Let's make it best for club. Let's give our athletes a week off at some point in the year. That'd be nice. But yeah, I'm all for you on that.
If the 18s can do nationals in the end of April, everybody can. They're all in high school.
100%. I think there's a lot of people on board for it. I'm going to start pushing for that next year. But again, I don't want to go push for something unless if there's a high school somewhere in the country that's getting out on, I don't know, July 1st, then I think what we're doing makes sense. But if it's not the case, then let's see if we can move things around and make things better for everybody.
Yeah. Coach, we'll leave you on this. I want to ask a question because I've been talking about year. I mean, it feels to me like your program, and we're going to talk about you guys more in a little bit, but your program has momentum. Last year's class, you got the rivalries renewed. Texas is in the SEC. Just a lot of natural things going for you, that you guys have that momentum. It feels to me like it will just carry over to recruiting. Do you feel that way? Does it feel like you're on a big class? How do you feel heading into tomorrow or heading into the class of 26?
Yeah. Thank you first. I appreciate that. I feel good. Going back to this, I think when we took over, we talked about the athletes that we had. Like, I had a core, and I believe in our ability to develop talent is number one thing. And I think that's just got to be the core of everything that you do. Like, regardless if somebody comes in as a walk-on, as a, I don't know, top 10 recruit or anything like that, like, you got to develop them. And if you can find people that are of good character and that have an athletic base that can, I don't know, at least genetically do the things that need to be done. Like, I don't think I can turn a 5-1 outside hitter into an All-American. Maybe I can, I don't know. But, like, you gotta get good people, and you got to get good athletes, and then you got to develop them. And then if you can get better athletes that start off at an amazing spot, then you can get good human beings. And I think that's our 25 class. Like they're great at both of those things. You're going to achieve some great things. And I think right now I feel pressure a little bit to back that up. I believe in the class that we have, and I want to put good people around them. And I think the both sides of that, like, of finding good athletes, but also, like, I really love where our culture is at right now. I love, like, the people we have around. I was going to one camp, and it's the most grinding thing on the planet. They've been through a week, and our athletes were hanging out with their coaches for an extra 30 minutes after camp. And I'm like, this is exactly what I was trying to create here. So I think there's this pressure to put good people around that. I think we have momentum, and I think I believe in our staff and my ability to develop people. So all of a sudden can we get the best athletes in the country here and develop them into Olympians and have some conversations along those lines? So I think it's a little bit of everything. I think I remember last year I got on the phone with all of these recruits, and it was my first June 15th. I'm like, how's this going for you? Because this is my first one too. And I feel like a little bit now. Like I feel like everyone's nervous to get on the phone tomorrow and have some conversations. I'm nervous to get on the phone tomorrow and have some conversations. But I think the coolest thing is like the June 15th thing is really cool because I feel like this entire time we've been going to these tournaments, we've been watching these people, and they've been watching us sitting on their courts and doing these things, and we have no idea even like what each other's voices sound like sometimes. And all of a sudden on June 15th, like that glass gets shattered, and it's like, hey, like I don't know, I get to know you, you get to know me, and for me that's a awesome thing. And I think my message to any recruit that would be listening is like, your job is to find a match. Like we talk in our program about like my goal is by the time they leave here, they go into a job interview, and so much of an interview for the other person as it is for them. Of like, I want to find a match. I want to find, I don't know, the right people, the right staff, the right program, the right school, the right everything that fits me. But vice versa, like we want to find the person that fits us also. So for me, it's this nervousness, and I'm sure most recruits are feeling, and there's this excitement that like we get to talk about the next generation of people that get to come and be Aggies, and be a part of our program. So yeah, there's a lot going on, as I'm sure there is for athletes going on with that. So yeah, excitement, nervousness, pressure to back up what we did, and where our program's going. Like I don't know, from the spring, like I think our program's in a really good spot to go do some cool things next year. But backing that up for, I guess, 6 years from now, I don't know how many years that is. Like I'm new to this whole thing. So, but yeah, excited. Biggest thing.
Awesome, buddy. Well, hey, we'll let you go and maybe get a couple hours of sleep. And thank your time, man. We're obviously that's our job. We'll be following along and see how things go, and with the U19 team and recruiting and everything else. But go and hang out with your wife a little bit. Spend a little family time, yep. and thank you so much for these 10 minutes, and best of luck to you. Okay.
Yeah. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for everything you guys are doing for the sport too. It's been pretty cool to see, just hearing the athletes' voices and what's going on in this whole process.
Hey, we're here to promote, we're here to build, and we're here to talk about the long process, buddy.
Appreciate it. All right, guys, have fun tonight.
All right, Jamie Morrison. All right, now, because that's what happens. That's what happens. Oh, we got it right there. When you follow a coach, we're going right in. We're actually going to go. What should we do? I don't want to keep the athletes waiting. Should we just bring them all and have a little bit longer with them since they're all in the room? All right.
I say do it. Bring them all.
All right, we're going to see how this goes. We've never had 6 guests before, but we're going to see. So we're going to bring on Kayla. You there?
Hi.
Kayla, how are you? Layla?
Hi, how are you?
We're good. How are you?
One by one.
All right, and then I don't see Finley yet, but when Finley pops back on, then we'll bring Finley on. There she is. Finley, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're awesome. Look at this panel. I think if everybody raised their hand if they're an All-American at one time in their life, I'd be the only one left out, I think. We got some talent. Okay, so let's go through. We'll keep you on for a little bit, but I didn't want you guys all waiting. So first of all, Finley Kostowiak out of California. And then we got, Layla is out of Ohio, right?
Yes.
And then Kayla's out of Michigan.
Yeah.
I did not want to mess those two up. Those are fighting words, right? I might have messed your states up. So, Finley, we got you on. You're on the big camera first. How do you feel?
I'm excited. I think I'm more excited to see like what everyone else does, but I'm nervous. I don't know.
Yeah. Nervous a little bit. Kayla, what about you?
Oh, yeah, I could say that I'm also kind of nervous for the whole thing, but it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you think you're ready for tomorrow?
Yeah. I mean, I prepared, so I think I'm pretty ready.
Yeah. Layla, you're last. How are you doing?
I mean, it's obviously a mix of emotions, but I think we're all feeling like somewhat the same thing. And that's like the comforting thing is like you're not alone and everyone else is feeling like basically the same emotions that you're feeling. So,
yeah. Right. Do you feel, I'll start with you and then we'll wrap around. So, Sam and Coach, what we'll do is you just yell at a question and who you want to answer it to, and then I'll put them on the big screen. But I'll go first. Layla, do you guys feel like as a class, do you almost feel like you go in it together? Like, do you talk to other people? Like, how are you doing? Are you nervous? Are you ready? Or do you not talk about things?
I mean, yeah, although like I feel like this class is like a very competitive class and like it's always high competition, always a close game, always back and forth. But I think truly at the end, like we're all like, we all have the same end goal, which is to reach whatever college we're going to play pro, if that's in our story, in our lives. But I truly think that, yeah, everyone's like in it together and we can lean on each other for support. But really, I think I found the most support in my teammates and in my coaches at Mintonette. They've done a great job of preparing us. So like, I definitely feel ready going in. But there's obviously nerves. Like you wouldn't feel nervous if you didn't care about it. So yeah, but I feel ready and nervous at the same time.
Absolutely. Who's got the next question?
Yeah, a little bit about what you said. I think we've seen through USA and we've seen through just qualifiers in general. Really, it just seems like this class is really kind of friends with everybody. You have friends all across the country and just on different teams. And then how kind of cool is it to think about that you could potentially be on the same team as these ones coming college?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, like the amount of people that you meet throughout your lifetime, like throughout this whole experience, like people across the country, and you can stay in touch with them even though you don't see them all the time. But it's like crazy, like even like not the volleyball aspect of it, because that's something that we all like have in common is like volleyball and our love for the sport, but like learning about like how their lives work outside of volleyball and like what's different about like where we live and stuff is really cool. And like that kind of can like deepen your relationship with the other girls. And then like obviously seeing each other at tournaments, like it's always good to catch up. So
good. Coach, question for any of the three?
Yeah, Layla and Kayla, you both said I prepared for this day. So tell us a little bit about what preparing means to you and what you did to feel like you're ready to go for tomorrow.
Oh, unmute.
Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Sometimes after practice, my coach would keep us for a little longer and would just tell us about the whole process and just try to like comfort us through the whole thing. And we had a little Zoom call that she like prepped us with all the questions, what the coaches might ask us, and all this stuff about the recruiting like aspect of it. So that I just like try to take my own notes on it and do my own research and stuff like that. And that's just how it felt. That's just how I felt prepared in it. And yeah.
Okay. Layla, what about you?
Yeah, I think similar to what Kayla was saying, how like our coaches, like even today, like our coach Max met with us, our whole team, like as a whole to like go over everything, kind of like have that like last like preparation before June 15th. But like truly, I think when you're on a good call, like I do have stuff written down on paper, like I do have questions prepared. But I think when you're on a good call, like it doesn't need to be scripted and you don't need to like check a paper to see what you need to say. And it just feels like natural. And that's a big thing about like me when I'm going to choose like what feels right. It's like natural and it feels like it's not forced and it's just a good, healthy relationship with the coaches.
Awesome.
Yeah. I have another one if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll go to Finley on this one. So all three of you play for phenomenal clubs and you have a great support system there. You guys have seen athletes from your club already go through this. Finley, what can you tell the athlete that plays for the club that doesn't have that? What piece of advice do you have for somebody that doesn't have a coach helping them and leading them through all of this?
Like a younger athlete that like doesn't have like players to talk to and like
or just like a club in the middle of Southern Illinois or something that has doesn't have somebody to go through mock phone calls with them or anything.
Yeah, that's hard because I basically leaned on like all the older girls, so I feel like just like do your research. Like I think you would know like what you think's like right for you. You don't have to like listen. I guess they couldn't listen to anyone, but just like do your research. You like know what's right. Like you should know who you want to talk to, like where you want to be.
Finley, let me jump in on that, and then I'll ask either of the others as well. Everybody talks about like a comfortable conversation or a conversation that flows well. That's great, right? And I'm always devil's advocate, but Coach has been in college and Samantha's played in college. Not every day at college is roses and butterflies, right? So how do you ask a coach tough questions, right? So Layla, what do you ask a coach about a tough day? How do you ask them a tough question? And do you have any of those prepared, Finley? Oh, you're.
Uh-oh, we lost her.
Sorry, you're muted.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, wait, I couldn't hear you, but I saw you guys were talking, and then my screen went out.
Oh, I just said, have you thought about any tough questions for a coach? You know, like what's life if I don't play well? What's a tough day look like in your program? Rather than, we all talk about, hey, it's easy. You just know if you have a easy conversation with somebody or it just flows right. Not everything always goes perfect at college. Have you thought about those conversations with the coach or asking them questions like that?
I don't have any tough questions like that, but I just feel like if you have the right conversation and that kind of conversation comes up, then I feel like it's a lot easier to have good conversations with a college that you want to go to, because obviously that's your future and you just want to know all the good things. But I do think it's good that if you have tough questions, I don't have any yet, at least. I'll probably get some after this, but I don't have any.
Yeah.
I think another kind of way to phrase that is, how are you guys as athletes almost really going to know what their culture kind of looks like through these conversations? I think like we've talked about, like Coach Jamie said, I think finding that schools that you guys are trying to find a match. So how do you guys are really going to find a program that, the coaching style fits you, maybe the player style, how intense it is, or maybe how is that kind of going to look for you guys in these conversations?
Kayla, let's give that one to you.
So I also haven't thought of any tough questions to ask yet, but I feel like it is if I do have those tough questions, I feel like I need to be comfortable with the coach, so that way I don't hesitate to ask, or I just want to be able to talk to the coach about stuff like that, because I feel like if the coach is right, then I'll be able to talk to them about anything. So
do you think, will your parents be there, or will you have some conversation? What do you think? Will parents be there for the calls, or Amy, how does that normally happen, I guess?
I think a lot of times, and you guys as athletes can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of times the parents are in the background, or, the players have us on speakerphone so that the parents can hear everything and kind of chime in when they see fit. But I'll kind of second what they've said also. I think this initial call is very much an icebreaker. And so it's okay if you don't have that list of A through Z ready to go. Just break the ice, get to know one. Maybe it's just determining level of interest from the very beginning. And then the next time you get on the call, you have a little bit harder of a conversation and you ask about the culture and you ask about playing time or injuries or some of those other things. But I've always found the more you can keep it light on June 15th, the more comfortable everybody feels. And so it almost helps, just like I said, just an icebreaker moment there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Kayla, what we talked before you really talked about academics being important to you. Is that something that's still really a focus and will maybe be somewhat of a factor?
yeah, so my academics always come first. My parents have always told me that academics come first because anything can happen in volleyball, but as long as I am strong in my school and studies, then that's set for me. So for the colleges that I'm looking at, I'm really looking at the academic portion as well. That's really the make or break for me. So
yeah, and then let's leave you guys on this one, because all three of you play for very strong club teams, right? And so we forget this sometimes because we focus on the recruiting, but you also have that club aspect where your club's focused on a national championship. So how have you been weighing that? And I'll start with Layla because you guys have the defending national champs. How has that been with prepping for nationals, but also prepping for recruiting?
I mean, I would say it's definitely like been tough. Like it's not ever going to be easy having to like kind of multitask like that. Like personally, like I think us all individually, it's definitely really hard to like, because like we had practice today and we're all like, oh, like we can't get recruiting out of our heads. Like we're all stressed. That's all we can think about. I mean, we still had like a good practice, but like it definitely like in the past years, which is what our coach Max talked to us about, like in the past years, it's easier to like achieve what we achieved because that's really all you're focused on is like if this was this time last year, I'd be thinking towards college, but I'd be mainly focused on like nationals. And now you have this whole new thing thrown at you and it's like all coming at once tomorrow. And you're like, oh, like you have to find a way to balance it, which I think a good way to balance it is just like have safe people you can talk to, siblings, parents, coaches, to kind of like balance it out when you're feeling stressed. So
perfect. Kayla, what about you?
I also agree with Layla. So to balance it out, I would just talk to the people that I'm most comfortable with. Definitely don't bottle it in. Like I would just want to talk about it. So.
Yeah, but how has training been? Have you done camps? Like has it been kind of a grind with training for nationals and maybe camps for college camps?
Yeah, so our practices have definitely been tougher because like the nationals is coming up. For camps, I've only been to one and I'm planning on going to a few more, but for like practice and training part, it's definitely gotten tougher just for the national season. So
perfect. Billy, I want to end with this for you because you're looking. How are you? You've always kind of been pretty lighthearted and just kind of a jokester, always talkative. Are you pretty loose heading into tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. Just like get to know the coaches finally. Like I feel like it's gonna be weird because we haven't been able to talk to them like at all, and then they're just gonna like offer us or whatever, and we're like, oh, okay, like thank you. But yeah, I'm excited to get to know them.
Yeah. Do you guys have you thought at all like setting a limit on how many calls, take as many as they come, or have you set up a game plan for tomorrow?
Yeah. So my coach helped me yesterday. I'm doing 7 tomorrow, and he just like we set like a time frame like 9 to 4 because he said like some are gonna be long, some are gonna be short, and I need to like my mental health, that stuff. I guess it's gonna be really bad. Hopefully not, but like breaks and stuff. So just give myself like a while to like call in. So.
Yeah, I love that. How about Layla? Have you thought about that at all? Have you kind of mapped out what's too much, what's enough?
So based on my coaches who I've talked to, we were told we should be doing like 5 to 6 calls a day because you need to take time to like after a call, you need to take time to think, write stuff down because you're not going to remember everything you talked about. So it's important to like reflect on it and then prepare for the next call. But I'm actually going to a camp on the 16th. So I talked with my coach and he was like, you should probably do more than 5 to 6 on the first day because you're going to be at camp all day. And then I'm probably going to have to fit in a couple calls on the way home from camp. So tomorrow's going to be a busy day for me. But yeah.
Yeah, well, Kayla, what about you? How have you thought about tomorrow?
I'm just going to take the calls as they come in. I do have some scheduled ones, but my coach also told me to write down stuff so that way I don't forget like what's been said or what questions I've asked or what they've told me and stuff like that.
Perfect. Amy, coach, one bit of advice for these guys before we let them go on tomorrow or the entire time?
I have 2. So the first one is definitely take time between calls because you're going to get caller fatigue, and the call that you take last at night might actually be the best fit, but you're so tired that you don't really want to talk to them anymore. So take your time, write everything down, and give yourself some breaks. And then my second piece of advice is don't get into comparison syndrome. Someone is going to commit tomorrow. Someone's going to commit a week from now, and someone's going to commit a year from now. And you just have to remember that everybody is different and everyone's path is different, and make the choices that are best for yourself, not because other people are doing it.
I love it. Samantha, what about you?
Just the last piece.
Advice for these guys as they head into this.
Yes, I think, yeah, like you guys said, I think lean on each other. I think the biggest thing, it's a stressful time period, I think, for parents as well. So I think giving yourself grace, and then giving also your support system and some of these college coaches grace as well. I think it's a stressful time for everybody, but I think as you guys narrow it down, it's going to be a really exciting process. And like you said, we're so thrilled to, be able to support you guys in this. And we're also here for you guys. We're also celebrating every milestone you guys reach. So we're excited for you guys.
Yeah. You guys want to let us know? We will celebrate with you. We are pumped. As we followed a guest and done whatever, we're like, we've got little boards and predictions and all that stuff. So we can't wait as we've done our little mock drafts and stuff in our office, because we're recruiting nerds, and I guess that's what we do. So we can't wait to see where you go, but enjoy it. And we'll see you all in Vegas at Nationals. Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys. Enjoy tomorrow.
Take care, you guys.
Bye.
All right. Those guys are out of here. Hey, we're going to keep going. We'll keep moving on, and we'll get back to our position breakdown. We're going long, and that's okay. We talked about the setters. We'll move on a little bit long. Liberos is another deep position, and let you see those names, and names you're going to be talking about a lot. But I want to touch on Sydney Burley and Sam, Coach. I don't know what you know, but Sydney and Caitlin, those are a tough couple. I had to ask around. I'm like, am I crazy? Because when I thought they're a couple of my top, but again, the rankings or whatever don't seem to really agree with me. But I mean, I love those two at the top, and maybe for different reasons. One, I think Caitlin Wynn out of Washington, and Sam, we saw her at NTDP, and if that's not the greatest energy giver I've ever seen, I don't know what is. And oh, by the way, she's one heck of a libero as well. And if you need her to jump in and be an ace on your on your beach team, she can do that. But Caitlin's amazing. And Sydney Burley, I mean, I'll never forget about her at Triple Crown, and almost not wanting to do the interview because she was still so mad that they lost the match when we talked to her. But those are two of mine. Talk about Sydney, Sam.
Yeah, I think I told Sydney this story actually when I was talking to her, but I think one of my favorite stories about her is that we have Ellery DeBurr out of the Minnesota select team as well, who we had reached out to. And one of the first things she says is, hey, you got to check out my libero. This is one of the best liberos I've ever played with in my entire life. And coming from a setter who's a 27, who's in the USA gym, who's playing at the top level, 2 ages up, for her age group. And I think that's just such a testament to Sydney's game and just, what she brings to the court as a libero.
Yeah, and Coach, have you got to see either of or anybody on this list? I mean, Emma Gugino is locked in all the time.
That's who I was going to talk about. I was at Summerfest a couple weeks ago, so just small tournament in Ohio, and she injured her shoulder. Never came out of the game. She was tossing with one arm and serving with the arm so that she was able to stay in the game the whole time. And so, like, similar to the stories you guys are telling, seeing those intangibles in liberos, I think that is when you can capitalize and go, okay, that's the type of libero that I want on my team. Somebody that's going to kind of run through the wall, have that great energy. Obviously you need to have the skills too, but she really stuck out to me. I was like, that's a baller.
No, I'd second that. I think watching a lot of these girls on this list, but you look at them and they just lead their team in the back row. And I think they're phenomenal just at keeping really at one of the things that stands out, I think, is the amount of court that they take. I think whether it's from their outsides, I think they make almost everybody's life easier. And I think that's really something that you're really looking for as a libero when they get to this high level.
The picture we have.
Sorry, Darren, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say it's been interesting to watch, you're seeing a lot of it in college, the show and take, and Lexi Rodriguez will take half of the court and serve receive. And so you're seeing a lot of those trends, and to see the ones that try to do it in club, I think is exceptional, because I'm like, it's very Lainey Choboy-esque, right? Like she was doing that since she was 16 years old. And so to kind of have that fearlessness at that age and just say, give me the ball, I'm going to try to get my hands on it in any way possible, I think is special.
Well, and the picture we have up there is of Erin Clark, and she is special. But when you watch, I sat down in, I don't know, Dallas, whatever, on the circuit, and was watching that Storm team and talked to people, and they have 3 different bros that they rotated. Erin wasn't even the bro the 2 matches that I watched, and they rotated there so deep. So they have 3 potential bros, Division I liberos on that team that you watch. And then another one, Izzy Maston, actually plays outside for her squad, but she is, talking with a couple people, could be one of the top liberos at the next level, just an undersized outside that will move to libero more likely than not at the power 4 level. So some great names there. I think you look at Jules Hernandez, who I think was one of the top in Texas, and many more to come, and we'll talk about a couple more. So those are our liberos, and then the opposites. We'll go through them quickly, and we've talked about Sarah all year, who just came on as somebody who takes over matches for that Houston Juniors team. Obviously, the height was there, and she was so consistent all year. But Nadia Johnson for the Metro team, and a team that, I'm learning the whole club game still. They have like 17 athletes on their team. And so Brya Bro, who we have at number 5, she could be an outside or an opposite at next level, hardly plays on that team because she's behind Nadia Johnson. And Brya Bro is going to go to, in some people's eyes, is a top 50 prospect in this class, who a lot of tournaments hardly gets on the court on that team. But in the college eyes, people are looking at her because 6'4", 6'5". I think she touches, what do we say, Samantha? She touches 10'7", 10.
Yeah, she's up there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a nice embarrassment of riches. But and it was funny because on the plane ride to Nashville this weekend, I was going through last year's national highlights that I took, thumbing through, and I had a picture of another Metro star that we're going to talk about. And all of a sudden I was zooming in and editing the highlight, and I'm like, who's that kid on the end of the bench? And it's Nadia Johnson. Last year, she was that one on the end of that Metro bench. And now may have made the U19 team. She was one of the opposites of the U19 tryouts this year, just came out of nowhere this year. We saw her in December in Anaheim, Samantha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like you said, 2 of those both really just physical athletes. I think their natural athletic ability just really sets their ceiling really high. And I think one of the things that I like that Coach Jamie really touched about was their coach's ability to really develop these players. So you have these athletes coming in like Nadia Johnson with just this really natural athletic ability where she's already touching 10'7". But then I think it's going to be really fun to kind of see these athletes just as they continue to develop, and then just really, the full circle moment, like you said, like Nadia Johnson's having right now.
Yeah. And so talk about, Coach, I want to talk about, before we go into our mailbag, but you talked a little bit to those athletes about the color fatigue. And I loved, I'm already forgetting which one it was, but I talked about, Finley talked about, my mental health. And that's important to remember during this time. Touch on that just a little bit, how stressful and overwhelming this can be for athletes.
it's so stressful and overwhelming. And that's why I also added the comparison piece of
Yeah.
it. You know, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And they all go to practice. They all talk about how many phone calls they took that day. Who did you talk to? Did anybody get an offer? And it's really easy to get wrapped up in the social media piece of it. People have started going the football, basketball route of I've received an offer, you know, putting it online. And and if they want to do that, I that's fine. You know, that's everybody's thing. But for each individual, it's just, can you focus on yourself, and can you take your time and take as many phone calls or as little phone calls as you want that day, but give yourself time to process it, write it down, have a recap even about what you liked, what you didn't like. And for once, lean on whether it's your parent or your mentor or somebody that you have, you need somebody helping you through it. And if somebody doesn't have somebody helping them through it, call me. Like, I'll help you, because I know it's so hard and it's so stressful, and you need a second ear and opinion to help guide you through all of it, because it's a lot.
Right. Right. And I do want to talk about that just for a second before we go to the mailbag, because we've gotten comments like that because we are a social media company. We do media and we cover recruiting because a big reason why we started this was I covered Bergen Riley. And my thing was, I heard how great Bergen Riley was. I mean, I knew she was very, very good. And I heard she was one of the top couple setters in the country. But my thing was, where's she going to school? Right? Like, I read all these articles and I heard she made all these all tournament teams and went to this US thing. I'm like, well, where's she going? It's like, I don't know. Right? Like, in football, that's what makes these passionate fan bases. So when I want to be clear, when we promote it, I don't enjoy nor condone the football, I have 87 offers either, right? I want to be clear. I don't like that. We won't promote that. I don't want that. That's not what we're trying to do. But if I've read about a stud athlete for 3 years on some other site, and there's been 87 articles about him every other week, I may be interested. And if I'm a XYZ fan, and we have a chance for her to come, that might interest me, right? If I was a USC fan and she's down to USC, that's why. I don't want to know all 34 schools they're looking at, but if they get down and what schools are kids really interested in? Who's doing a good job of getting them to campus? I don't want to know all 79 schools that called you tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be clear because I get it. That's overwhelming. And I've gotten the email saying that's what we're trying to do to volleyball, and it's not. And we don't promote that. And I want to be clear because we have talked to girls about that. But I also am on the other side of it, that if you're paying $100,000 to play club volleyball, to go to college, and you're good enough to go to your dream school, I think it's okay to brag about that a little bit.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
But there's other people that don't, right? And they're saying volleyball's never done that. And I'm saying everything else in volleyball is changing, right? There's a lot more money involved in volleyball, right? We're going to have a 1201 volleyball special tonight, right? That things are changing. And with more money comes more other things. And I'm just trying to do it in a way that's somewhat professional and is coming from the mouths of people that do it for a living. And so I just want to be clear on that we're not trying to do 87 offers because I don't enjoy that or prefer it either. But I do think these girls, I'm interested, and I've had talks with Samantha about that. Like, where do you think they're going? I would call you, Amy, because I'm generally interested, because now I followed these athletes for 2 years around the circuit, and I want to see where they're going to go. And if they would go to a school like XYZ, they could be a program changer, right? And so on my soapbox again and just want to throw that out there. I'll still get nasty grams, but that's okay. I signed up for this, I guess. So when you're being a recruiting pioneer, I guess that comes with the territory. So with that, let's go on to the mailbag. I'm going to let you guys answer some of these. All right. And let's start. I'm going to ask and rotate these. Let's start with Coach. We've kind of answered this, but how many calls, Coach, should I take in a day? What do you think is a good number?
I think about 5 or 6 is pretty good. I think if you're doing more than that, I'm not sure how you're keeping track of all that information. I hope you have a spreadsheet, but I think 5 or 6 is a good start.
Okay. Important, Sam. I'm going to start with you on this. What should I be asking college coaches? What are some of the most important things? Maybe give me 1 or 2, and then Coach, you can give me 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think I had a different answer at the beginning of this, but I think echoing kind of what Amy said, I would say this conversation is really about, I think, getting to know each other and just kind of breaking the ice. So I think maybe maybe as an athlete, like learning a new fact about this coach or something you didn't know. I think just kind of lighthearted information. And then another piece is, I think I would say more than advice is to share things about yourself. I think that's also a really big thing, to share something unique about you and just something that, like you said, these coaches and players have never had conversations before. So I think really, really showing them a little piece of who you are right off the bat.
Coach?
I always love.
Sorry, let me alter this. Not day one. Not day one. Because when I meant about the hard questions, I didn't mean tomorrow. I meant before you commit. So what should you be asking a coach on call number 2?
I think a lot of good questions revolve around, what is your post-game speech after a loss? What happens if I get injured? What does your medical stuff look like? And I know that sports are changing. And I know, Jamie mentioned like you should go to a school for the coach a little bit. And I agree with him, but I do think there's still so many things about a school that are important and what the school offers you. And so make sure you're asking questions of what does it look like to be taken care of as a non-student athlete? And what does that look like from the coach's eyes?
Those are good. How many commits do you predict on day one? I'll start. I would hope there wouldn't be any, but I'm going to say 4. I think there'll be 4 tomorrow. I'm not going to say who. I think I know, but I'm going to say 4. I would hope there would be 0.
I'm going to go with 2.
That might be safe.
I'll go with 3. Right in the middle.
Perfect. All right. Should I reach out to schools I am interested in? Absolutely, I say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things going off this question is, while we was talking to the girls about, some of these schools might not be reaching out to them and some of their dream ones, you might get other calls, but I think, really being almost aggressive. I think it's a recruiter's job to recruit you, but I think also one of the best pieces is really putting yourself out there. And I think there's a lot of talent in this class just spread out. So I think the names and the rankings are all really cool, but I think, the schools want to find a match, and, some of these athletes really have some stuff. So I would, encourage athletes to, I think, reach out to those coaches.
What is a good timeline to commit? I say you can commit as soon as you've taken a visit would be mine. That's getting harder and harder to do, but that's what I would say. Coach?
Yeah, if you haven't visited the school, and I don't always agree that camp is a visit, because I think there's a lot more that can go into a visit, but definitely not before you take a visit, for sure.
Yes. What to do if a coach gives you a deadline? I love this one. Coach?
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is. It's going to happen.
I think that you just have to trust your gut. And I think, let me rephrase the question a little bit. Is the deadline in June, or is the deadline like next December? Because I think if anybody's deadlining you and it's still the summer, I think that's a little bananas. And I would just try to delay that and go, hey, I really still want to come on my visit. I'm very interested. Can we wait until the fall? If you've already taken your visit and, you're getting into like next spring territory and the coach is giving you a deadline, you also have to respect that it's a business for them too. And they are trying to make their team better. So I do think it's time dependent, and each scenario kind of leads itself to a different response.
What are schools known for giving deadlines? Like, is it hey, this school X has a history of doing it, or
oh yeah.
they do? All right.
Yeah, there's definitely
so.
some schools out there that I've heard of schools giving a deadline on June 15th, that if you don't accept by the end of the day, we're moving on to the next person.
Zach's a stat man behind the screen, but I think he told me one school had was it 8 days they had their entire class? Yep. Oof. 8 days they had their entire class last year. But anyways, and they're doing it. I understand from their point of view, they're doing it because they don't want to lose it. They don't want to lose you and somebody else, is what I'm assuming, right? That's why they do it.
That would be my guess. And I think sometimes coaches just feel like, hey, if I give them a deadline, they either want to come here or they don't. And so if they don't want to come here, they'll say no, and I'll move on, and it'll be okay.
Okay. How many official visits should I be taking? Official visits are like your honeymoon. You never get treated better, at least in the football world. So I take as many. That's the best meal you're ever going to get for free. So I take as many as you could. But what do you think, Sam?
No, I would agree. I think with the unlimited rule, you might as well take them all.
Yeah. Coach,
I think probably 3 or 4. I think if you're getting over the 4 threshold, everything is getting jumbled together. And it's like, how do you even remember what happened on that first one? So I say 3, try to do them as close together as possible so that you can kind of go through those comparisons and make your checklists. And I've thought that's always been helpful to the recruits that I've had.
Yeah. We're skipping the NIL thing because that's a whole nother 2-hour we're just not getting into, because everything's changing with the new legislations that 26s, you're going to have a whole new ball game than everybody did before. So we'll address that later. What information should I research about these schools? One, hopefully you've done a lot of research. I would hope everybody would do it, but the thing I would say, if you haven't, I would be talking to as many past players as possible. Transfers, ones that have stayed, All-Americans, starters, bench players, whatever. I would talk to as many athletes as possible. Sam, you can probably address this really well.
No, yeah, I would agree. I think that, and then also, like a lot of the girls touched on, there's girls that are years before you were, in the same club that have gone through the same experiences, maybe talk to the same coaches. So I think, using your resources, and then just like Coach Amy said, I think really learning about the schools take out the volleyball part of it. I think, would you want to go there as a normal student, and then what they offer academically? And I think a lot of those things are really important as well.
Amy, anything else on that?
I would just add a piece about education. If you have an idea of what your interest is for your major, see if they even offer it. I've recruited some athletes that want like a very specific engineering or art program or something along those lines. And either your school has it or they don't. And I think the athlete needs to know if that's available to them.
How funny college athletics have changed, right? An hour and 39 minutes into the show, and we talk about, oh, by the way, make sure they have your major.
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely different, and it's going to change again. I've heard that the recruiting calendar is being proposed differently, and all of these NIL things, and so. But the thing that never changes is an athlete advocating for themselves and an athlete figuring out what the best home for them is. And that looks so different across the board.
Absolutely. We want to go into, because this is important to us, we want to go into our Fortunate 48. And these are just some names that maybe we're not a top 10. This class, like every class, is so deep, and we don't focus on, again, I had the opportunity to sit and talk with 7 or 8 national champions this week, and they were telling stories and laughing about when I talked about top 5 recruits and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, weren't none of us top 5 recruits, right? Like, and laughing how they got passed over and they weren't on any recruiting specials or anything. So these are athletes, you need to know their names because they're going to make a big impact, and they're going to go to big time schools, and they're going to do big time things, and we've seen them before. But Morgan Williams, she just tweeted out today, but Morgan Williams was who I was referring to, outside hitter who was just outside, I guess, our big 30, if you will, one of the top outside hitters in the nation. And she's just on that Metro team that, what the heck, man, they have weapon after weapon. We knew it was a big deal when Triple Crown weekend, about 10 top 25 coaches we talked to, and we're like, what are you doing tomorrow? They're like, we're flying, where was it? DC, right? Was it DC, Amy, that has the President's Day?
Yeah.
Also,
the Capitol Hill Classic.
Yeah. And they were all flying only to watch that Metro team for one day. And, you have some talent when they rebook just to all come watch your team for one day. But Morgan Williams is special. And Madison, Samantha, you had interviewed Madison not too long ago from another Storm kid.
Yeah, I think one of those, just really all around outside. I think a lot of these girls, I think on a lot of the outsides on this list as well, just carry really heavy loads offensively, defensively. They're really that kind of core for these teams. So Madison, a phenomenal player on just a really Storm Arizona team already. Yeah.
Sydney Weiss, you want to talk about having it just when you think, all 6,000 class of 26 athletes. Sydney Weiss shows up this at Vanderbilt after she had made the SEC tour, and talked to her mom. It was the last day of, I think, Camp 5, and her mom had a Red Bull the afternoon session. She's like, got to make it home tonight, and saw her and all 6'5" of her and her power arm, and so watch out for her. And then I'm going to give a shout out to Gabby Zacharias and Gatorade Player of the Year out of Harrisburg and plays for Kairos Elite. Only other sophomore in South Dakota history, I believe, to win Gatorade Player of the Year as a sophomore. Anybody? Come on.
Bergen.
Thank you. Gabby Zacharias and we have a lot of them. So here's our next page. On there, and then I'm going to give a shout, Raina Cholkowski, who plays for Summit Volleyball in North Dakota, and she made a couple camps down south. But this is a kid, you want to talk about playing for a smaller club, has done all the USA Volleyball stuff, has been invited to NTDP a couple times. You want to talk about, you would ask that question to, I think, Finley coach, about what does somebody do if they're in, doesn't have the recruiting coordinator. That's Raina, and she had busted her chops, and she has done this now for 2 years previous to get herself noticed, got herself on the radar of some schools, and is going to get a shot. And one of those kids not on the national radar at all, just simply because of geography, but excited for her. And then Samantha, what about Soraya Dennis, who we out of Wave, who we've seen? And Amy, you've probably seen her in the California days.
Yeah, and I love to see Sammy Dessler's name up here. I mean, great kid, great athlete, has always kind of been in the shadow of some of her teammates. And so for her to get some recognition, I love it. She was always a pleasure to work with. So yeah, I love to see the SoCal kids up there.
Well, and Grace Martin, I mean, that Pohaku team, they play whatever, above their heads, above their height, whatever it is. You want to see a fun team that plays their rear ends off every single match. And Grace does that. You know, you want to give the undersized outside, but she's going to land somewhere and just be fun to watch. Awesome interview with her earlier this year, and excited to see where she goes, but just some more names. And then our last one, and then Reese Shugart, she had been on our player profile earlier this year, played for Stars. I got to see them only in one tournament in Open, but Stars, a smaller club, and they just didn't play well that weekend. Really didn't get to see much, but got to see her at camp. And a funny story, go back, Vice, who we mentioned a couple slides ago, and we talk about, right, and we focus on all the Texas clubs, right, and the California clubs, and we think, oh, man, their entire team goes D1, right? And we focus on these top 10s all the time. We think that's the way it is. And then you meet somebody like Reese and Vice, and you think, and I talked to them, and I didn't recognize them right away at Vanderbilt. And they're like, oh my gosh, we've been following each other around these camps. And we met at the first one. It was Auburn. And we were the two, had the most anxiety, and we found each other. And because everybody else knew each other, and we were both kind of scared. And then we were like, oh, you're going to Florida too, and then you're going to Vandy? Okay, we'll just be pepper partners the rest of the week. And then they became friends because they didn't know anybody else because they're from smaller clubs, right? And I mean, friends through this, and you realize that not everybody is on this big national Skyline club or, and those are the cool stories that I love. It's kind of where I come from. And Reese Shugart, as a power arm, and she doesn't care that I say this, I think she has size 18 feet. And I don't know when she's going to grow, but when that kid grows, she might be 6'8". And if she keeps that arm, she'll be on whatever national team she wants to be. So watch her. And then Paisley Pavilska, that we watched earlier this year, is going to be a great one at all. Samantha, anybody on this list that you've seen and want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I think Riley Malloy, just really a phenomenal athlete all the way around. She's physical, just really good. So really fun to watch. And then Aubrey Fernandez, I think one of those, a lot of people, there's a lot of DSs in this class. And I think those are, like we talked about a little bit about Aaron Clark, having to play a different role and maybe not the starting libero. So I think just really somebody that kind of comes on and really does their role. So I kind of wanted to give her a shout out just for, how important she is for that team.
Yeah, and I don't understand, Coach, maybe you touch on that, and then we'll finish up with the college ranks and get everybody out of here. We might go till midnight, but talk about recruiting liberos and DSs, because it seems really confusing to me, and I got to believe as a kid, it could be frustrating and confusing. Can you talk about that? It seems like every college has a different approach.
Yeah, I think that times have certainly changed since when I went through the recruiting process as a libero. It's great to see. I think the top liberos are getting 4 years, and that never really used to happen. It used to be a position that was really valued at a partial scholarship. And so I think we're headed in the right direction of at least they're getting 4-year offers now. But being a libero and a DS has got to be one of the most patient, testing recruiting processes to go through, because you're just not going to get the same phone calls as everybody else. And you really, I think, should take your time if you're a libero and figure out what's important to you in a school. And if playing time is something that's important and you want to be the libero, then maybe you're looking at going to a lower mid-major or even a D2 and a D3 school. And I don't think people give enough credit to what those experiences can be. But liberos and DSs are, I hate to say it, they're still a dime a dozen. There's a lot of them out there, and there's a lot that are willing to pay their way to go to their program. And so it's just going to be about finding the right fit for you. And that takes a lot of work. So be prepared to put a lot of work in if you want to play in college as a libero.
Yeah, Samantha, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think, yeah, it's a difficult position. I think there's a lot of talent, and I think just to be in that position in general, you have to have a lot of patience. So I think I would agree. Just really, as you continue to go through recruiting and, find the spot that's good for you. And if, like she said, if playing time's important, then figure out what is going to work for you in a school that still matches everything that you want, but really gives you the opportunity that you are looking for.
Absolutely. And as we go out here, we want to bring in, this is our top 10 recruiting classes. And again, we did this by average. There was average and then there was total. And I don't know the best way to do it. I guess we'll do both and see. This maybe has higher end talent. The total points, PPV probably awards larger classes. But these are the top 10 programs according to average prospect power value. And again, what might be a shocker, but Oregon across the board has 4 extremely solid high-end prospects. And it's not that, I think if you would look at as far as better known names and maybe higher end, Nebraska probably still is there. They had one more athlete in their class, which on an average maybe brings them down slightly. You're flipping coins, and the other one, they're ahead of Oregon, but I think it says a lot for Matt Ulmer and his class with them. But I also think you had maybe with USC, the bottom of their class probably brought that average down. I think when you look at the top of their class, that's as powerful as anybody other than Texas in the country. That Texas class, I don't remember where the Nebraska class of 2 years ago ranks, but I think you'd have to put this Texas class up against that Nebraska class of 2 years ago. Coach, you were around for that. Maybe your thoughts.
Well, I got to go. USC's got to be higher because I recruited like over half of that class. So I got to give us a little bit more love there. But no, that Texas class is one of the best recruiting classes that I think has been put together in the last 5 years. I mean, it's just top to bottom. They're going to have people come in and make an impact right away too, which I think is important. They have size, they have skill, and it's very, very talented. So they definitely deserve that number 1 ranking.
Yeah. Well, you, in defense, you would love our total PPV than USC's number 3.
I know. I saw that one too. I still think they're number 2. I think Taylor Deckert does not get enough love as a libero. I think she's one of the best liberos in the class. And I think there's 4 people on that team that start at any one of the other schools. So
I think it's I think I probably don't give liberos enough overall PPV compared to outsides, if I'm being honest.
I think that's probably fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did rank her. I think I should say we ranked her as tied for the number 1 overall libero. She was the highest, but we didn't rank liberos as high as that. So in defense, and we'll learn going forward. But yeah, absolutely. And I love that class. Mullen, it's amazing. And I like Reese Messer is one, she's perfect for California with her attitude. And that kid's they're going to love her in California. She is very, very good. So you'll love that class. So with that, and then we'll go with 4 programs, I think, that had a little bit of smoke this summer from just getting more talent on campus. And I just like what the NC State program is doing. And again, I'm not going to throw in the big dogs. It's different recruiting for them than it is everybody else. And I like the class that Duke had last year, especially with Charlotte Glass. They had 2 Under Armour All-Americans, I believe, in last year's class. They had some good talent. Auburn had a very strong first select camp. We'll see what that leads to. NC State did as well, and I've already talked about A&M. I don't know, Samantha, if you've seen anything or other programs that you look at. I think Pitt, I don't know. It seems like everybody still doesn't throw Pitt in, which is exactly what Coach Fish wants everybody to keep doing. But they have as much talent on their campus, and I think they're on the edge of having a top 4 or 5 class, but I consider them one of the big dogs now. So I don't know. Anybody else you guys think that's a program that's coming in with quite a bit of momentum heading into this year's recruiting cycle?
I think TCU has done a good job.
Yes.
I thought their transfers this year, and then even going off of Para last year, I think they've just kind of kept the momentum going. I love their 2025 class. They took people that I was having phone calls with every week. And so I thought they did a great job there. That's one that sticks out to me about kind of making a jump this year. You know, they were right there as a tournament team, and I could see them kind of making a push.
Yeah. Samantha, anybody? Creighton's won.
Yep, you took it. Yep. Mm-hmm. I think Creighton and Marquette as well. I think they've also had a phenomenal, run in the past few years in the tournament. And I think, they just assigned over a really great setter the other day. So I think, I think those are 2 teams that I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how that momentum may, continue.
One over there, Indiana. Indiana was in our total was a top 10, 25 class. We interviewed Coach Aird earlier this winter, seems like 6 years ago, but their camp. I think we had a young lady on tonight that was at their camp earlier this week. They've had some bigger names, and I've talked with a few of those programs. I talked with DBK and Dan Meskey about, and the Pitt staff about, do you recruit different kids than you did when, turning a program around, you've got to win with where you're at. And then once you get there, you still have the same values and the hard work and whatever, but all of a sudden you're in on kids that a talent level that maybe you weren't a few years before. Coach, can you speak on that at all?
I think that the job of every coach is to continuously move the needle forward. So every year, are you adding one piece are you upgrading a position? And when you're just starting out, then maybe that needle moving is a little bit smaller, or maybe it's a little bit bigger because you can make some bigger jumps. And then as you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm in the Final Four every year, this is really nice, it's more about adding maybe 1 or 2 pieces instead of 3 or 4. And so I think you get to be really specific with what your needs are and the type of person that you want to bring in. And you have the luxury of being able to be that nitpicky. You don't always get to do that in the very beginning. So
yeah. And I think they just talk about like they were amazed. Well, I guess they can't be because it's not in the barn. The hay's not in the barn yet, but they're 25s and they're like, those are some of the most athletic kids we've ever been in on. Like, we had to really evaluate talent years ago and train the heck out of them, and then, really get kids with a chip on their shoulder and overperform. And to me, it's so funny with those two that they built so similarly, right? With these hard kids that were, probably play like Samantha, right? With a big chip on their shoulder and under recruited and overplay. And they both got to Final Fours now, and they're right on that verge, but yet they're in the same conference and they're like big time rivals now.
And I don't think their recruiting has changed that much, because I think that's who they are. That's who they are as coaches. That's the culture that they want. And so I think no matter how many Final Fours they go to, or if they win the national championship, they're still going to go after the kid that has the chip on their shoulder. And I think that's awesome. They know who they are as programs and kind of who thrives under them as coaches. And that is, I think, a feat in itself to be able to recruit that type of player over and over again and continue to see them have success.
Yeah. And I remember 2 years ago when I decided I was going to do this whole thing, somebody talked to me about they're a great fit. I think it was Kentucky, and they said that kid is a perfect fit for Skinner at Kentucky. And I'm like, what do you mean? And now I'm starting to totally get it, right? Like there's a fit for Pittsburgh, right? Like there's a fit for, DBK at Louisville or these programs, and you're starting to understand. But if the talent is slightly higher than it was and they're a fit for the program, then better things happen. But guys, we'll get going on this. Leave athletes with a prediction, closing thoughts. First of all, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. You added so much. Samantha, as I always tell you, it's nice having people who know something about volleyball, talk volleyball. But closing thoughts to our followers again about the process, and talk to the athlete that maybe doesn't get a call tomorrow.
Me or Samantha?
I can take that one. I'll take that one.
Samantha. Yeah.
I think for that one, I would just say, one, I think reach out to schools that you're interested in. I think for a lot of maybe that are not in the top 5, a lot of those big schools may not call you, but that doesn't mean that that's not a possibility. So I think that, and then, I would just say, I think it's a process, and to take your time and continue to be true to the things that you want, and playing time and kind of just really figuring out what that looks like for you. And then also I think being realistic, and there's so many great, like she said earlier, like Division II, Division III, there's lots of opportunities at different levels for everybody. So I think just really, finding out what works best for you, and then what kind of suits your best needs as you look for a home for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Coach?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a longer story, but I started coaching in 2012 when there was like no rules. And so you could talk to whoever. But even back then, I was given this piece of advice that I think still rings true today. And it was make a list of the things that are non-negotiable for you in a school. And the example that I always share is from a girl that played in the club that I coached for. She actually went on to play soccer at Penn State. But her 3 things were she wanted a marching band, she wanted greenery, and she wanted a Taco Bell. And so that in itself narrowed it down to, okay, you want a big school. You want it to not be in a city because you wanted some greenery, and at least there's a Taco Bell. So you're not directly in the middle of nowhere. There is some form of civilization. And I think as you have your phone calls and you start to make your visits and you figure out, okay, here are the things that I can and I can't live without for the next 4 years of my life, I think that's really important. And then continue to think of this as a lifetime commitment, not just a 4-year commitment, because this is going to be your family. This is going to be your alumni association. This is going to be your future job. And so take your time. I cannot stress enough about taking your time and really, really doing your due diligence and have fun. And if the minute it doesn't become fun anymore, turn the phone off, take a break, go to the beach, do something that you love, and then reset tomorrow or the next day and get back after it.
And I'll close with a couple thoughts. It might be redundant, but it's because it's important. This is your process. And I would encourage you to ask the tough questions because they're important. I would encourage prospects to look for red flags because they're red flags for a reason, right? ESPN doesn't talk about those things because they don't sell ads, right? There's college athletics is a business. Those coaches are there to win games, to extend contracts. It's their job, right? It's their job. I have a job. You will have a job. Samantha's going to have a job. Coach Pauly has a job, right? But they all do their job in different ways. They do their job the best way they know how. Right? You need to align yourself with somebody who does their job the best way they know how, that fits where you want to be. Right. And the friendship. And I had a coach tell me, he's like, it's hilarious. We'll lose people in undergrad, right? 18-year-olds because they go somewhere else because the campus is so pretty. And then in the portal, we'll get them and they'll be like, I don't care about the campus because I spend all my time in the volleyball facility. Right? Samantha's shaking her head and coaches are shaking her head. It's a job. It's all butterflies and rainbows right now, but understand it's reality. And every 99% of the college athletes I talk to, and I say, what would you do different if you could take your recruiting back? They all say, I would take more time, right? They all say it. And that doesn't mean you can't go to Shangri-La, Dream School, blah, blah, blah. You can still go there, right? And you don't miss the opportunity, okay, if they really want you. The only time they move on is if they didn't really want you, right? They wait. Now, if you're number 1 in America, they wait longer than if you're number 550 in America. And that's just unfortunately the way it works, because this is a business, right? And we make it all look good on ESPN and all that, and on social media and Facebook, but understand that. And I had another coach tell me one important thing, and I think so many of you miss this right now, and it makes me a little bit sad. This is your time that you are in control. You are in power. They are recruiting you. Don't be scared to speak your mind. Don't be scared to advocate for yourself. Don't be scared to talk about what's important to you, because they need to come get you. That's why it's called recruiting, right? You will work for them soon enough, right? And in essence, be an employee of the university of whatever, okay? Make them come get you and enjoy this time, right? But regardless of what happens, we'll retweet it. We'll make some post that doesn't look as good as somebody else's, and we'll celebrate with you. We'll do interviews with you, and we're excited because you're moving on and you're going to make the game better, and you couldn't be involved in volleyball at a better time. Zach texted me behind the scenes doing all this stuff. We thank you. 1,143 viewers. Zach and I did one of these, and we had 16 one time. So I guess we're growing. We thank everybody. We went a little long, but it was good. Enjoy your process. Sleep in. Enjoy it. Coach Pauly, thank you for your time. Everybody, good night, and good luck, class of 2026. Take care, everybody. Thanks, guys.